In a world where nuclear war has begun, vampires fought back in super real 3D.
What's up, guys? It's been a little while. I am dropping in quickly to throw out my 2 cents about the Canon C400. They made the announcement a few days ago and explained all the specs on it. And as somebody that owns a Canon R5C and a Red Epic Dragon, which I'm going to mention why that's relevant in a second, I think that the Canon C400 sounds like a fantastic camera. I think it's really amazing that it's coming in at the price point that it is. And I'm very surprised that anyone is underwhelmed by what it's offering. At some point, we sound a little spoiled. I mean, come on. What you're getting for the price tag that they're putting on this at $8,000 is pretty absurd. It's very, very aggressively priced, in my opinion. This is definitely something that you would question, do I want to get this or do I want to get a Red Komodo? Or really, I just don't even think that the Sony FX9 is in the conversation at this point, because we're in a bigger resolution size and we're talking about RAW internally, and that's what this camera brings to the table, and so does a Red Komodo. The next step up from there, if you're going to go in Sony land, is the Burano, and it has some, I'm not going to go into all the details about it, but it has some really weird decision making on some of its aspects, and it just doesn't quite make sense, and it's priced at $25,000, which everyone just doesn't get that price for how they've crippled that camera and made some of the decisions that they have. So you're back down at this price point, you're looking at a Red Komodo X, or, you know, the last generation of Komodo that's going to come in slightly priced under this new Canon offering. What does the Canon offering have that the Komodo doesn't? Well, has a lot of auto features that the Komodo doesn't. And autofocus, while I love focusing manually, there are just plain and simply certain things that you can't focus manually as a single shooter. And you really, like when you're putting things on a gimbal, autofocus is amazing to have. It's really the reason I got a Canon R5C. I wanted a gimbal camera that had RAW and had a high resolution and looked great, that I could pair with my Red. And the Canon pairs so well with Red, it's kind of ridiculous. You can get Sony to pair well with Red, but for whatever reason with Canon's color science, I feel like it just pairs well quicker. I've just been kind of in the Canon camp for the past couple of years with the Canon R5C. It's really won me over every time I go out to shoot with it. But the C400 offers 3 tiers of a native ISO. So it's not dual native ISO, it's triple native ISO. This is new. This doesn't exist. This is crazy. It has 800, 3200, and 12,800. So for all the Sony users that tout the 12,800 ISO, this competes with that. In fact, in my opinion, so far from what I've seen from the test footage, it looks better. The reason it looks better is it has maybe slightly more noise. That's questionable, but the color is better. It holds color better. It's more accurate. It seems like it holds saturation a little bit more. So 12,800 is, in my opinion, better in Canon land now. So that's amazing. Now, one of the crippling factors of the Sony is that it's a base ISO dual native of 800 and 12,800. That's a huge jump. On the Canon R5C, it's dual native ISO of 800 and 3200. And believe it or not, 3200 is what I use like 70% of the time, maybe 80% of the time. It's so nice to be able to go to that. It's not crazy high with 12,800 where you can't throw a light in the equation, but it's high enough that you can use minimal lighting and get these great shots and really work off of what the room lighting is, and then just add your keys. Right now, I'm at 3200 on the ISO at a 2.8 aperture on the Canon 24-70 RF. So I have a little bit of RF glass. I have a lot of EF glass. This would carry over well to the C400 should I choose to get this camera, which I am not shopping for a new camera right now. But if I was, I'd be hard-pressed to not go in this direction. It really looks like a fantastic camera. The 6K versus 8K that's offered on the R5C, I think is worth the hit because of the dynamic range boost. And 6K is very good. You can do a lot with 6K. 8K can be overkill in times, but I have a whole video talking about where I really like the 8K. However, I would go to 6K for the dynamic range boost up to the 16 stops that this offers. That is a big deal. It's a brand new sensor. the footage that I'm seeing so far looks great. So you got better low light, you have higher dynamic range, you got 6K RAW internal. This already puts it in a different league, in my opinion, than the Sony FX6, for instance. That's why I didn't even bring it up as a competitor. I don't think this is competing against the F6. That doesn't have 6K, and it doesn't offer RAW. And RAW is amazing. Once you start playing with RAW, if you're doing productions that you want to look as good as possible, you want to have internal RAW. You can do more with it. You can make all kinds of fun things happen. I'm not filming in RAW right now for this. The battery life seems very promising. Autofocus does look solid. If you're buying this camera versus like starting with a Red Komodo body, you're already getting a full camera for that price with an actual LCD. You're much more ready to go with that camera combo. So it's the Komodo, you're really just getting started. But I understand if you just absolutely love the red look. I love the red look too. There is something about it. However, the more times I play with it side by side with even the Canon R5C footage, I would say half the time I like the R5C better, half the time I like the red better. It's that close. When it's that close, it's hard to not want to go where all the auto tools are. We don't know what's going to happen with Red and Nikon right now, so I feel like that makes it a harder direction to invest in, not knowing. But at $2,000 less than a Komodo X, that's pretty promising. Better low light than Komodo X, and yeah, that's a little tricky. So, and built-in ND filters. My God, I haven't even brought that up. And that would be another advantage over the R5C that I would forfeit the 8K RAW for to take on the 6K RAW. The triple native ISO, the higher dynamic range, quality preamps built into the camera for good audio recording, the myriad of every option that you need on the back end for any kind of professional connection type. And not to mention it's full frame. Jeez Louise. I mean, it's a full frame, guys. That's amazing. For them to come in with this many offerings at $8,000 is fantastic. I mean, that is a really good price point. So if we're looking for something to absolutely revolutionize the market and the world of cameras, I don't know that that's really going to happen anymore, because it's diminished returns at this point. Everyone's gotten so good. There's only so far you can go with resolution. A lot of people aren't even asking for 8K like I have. So 6K is plenty for a lot of people. And I mean, if you're offering RAW, you're offering 6K resolution, you're offering 16 stops of dynamic range. If you can't get 16 stops of dynamic range to work for you, then that's a problem, okay? Because 16's a lot. That's really good. I don't think it's good to get any camera the first iteration of its release. They always fix things. They always improve something. The firmware always gets better. There's always hiccups. There's, issues with codecs and software and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just going to let this play out for a little while anyway, and we'll see where it all lands. All right, guys, take care. Peace.